Hello, you're watching Vox News live from London. It's time for a news update. I'm Deena Campbell. President Buhari is to take control of Nigeria's crucial oil portfolio rather than entrusting it to anyone else. He took office at the end of May, promising to combat corruption, and has made it clear he wants to overhaul the oil sector, which provides around 70% of the country's revenue. Meanwhile, the president has not yet named a cabinet, but is expected to submit candidates to Parliament in the coming days. The president of the Ivory Coast has issued a message of reconciliation during a visit to a stronghold of his predecessor. It's less than a month before the country is due to go to the polls to elect a new president, with Alassane Ouattara the favourite to win. It's hoped the election will restore stability to the country, which saw post-election violence in 2010 and 11, triggered by Laurent Gbagbo's refusal to step down.
As fathers, we take responsibility for the mistakes committed by the children of Gagnoa against the nation. Your Highness, Mr. President, you are here in the Bete County of Gagnoa. The fathers aren't asking you for anything faced with their children's mistake. They aren't threatening anybody. They aren't asking for anything in return. They aren't taking advantage of anything. They are just proudly asking for forgiveness. We must have the strength and the humility to forgive and to be able to go forward. The stakes were high, especially as everyone knows the history of Gagnoa. Gagnoa is the region of the former head of state who is currently jailed in The Hague, and it's also the village of Bledgode. And after the post-electoral crisis, many children of Gagnoa were jailed. So we needed to know how these people would receive President Alassane Ouattara.
In South Sudan, the country's president and rebel leader have been pointing the finger over who's to blame for breaking a ceasefire brokered to end 21 months of conflict. Despite the accusations, President Salva Kiir told a UN meeting that his commitment to the August peace deal is unwavering. Ban Ki-moon, the Secretary General for the UN, has encouraged both sides to not betray the pact. Burkina Faso's army has seized control of a military camp held by the Presidential Guard, who'd previously refused to disarm in the wake of a failed coup. The soldiers entered the palace barracks in Ouagadougou with little resistance, according to a military source. Troops were searching for General Gilbert Diendéré, who led the coup. However, he was nowhere to be found.
We have to keep on pressuring him, and we hope that he will come to reason and respect his word, his agreements, and lay down the weapons for good, so that we can put an end to this crisis that everyone finds regrettable. We really fear a confrontation, but we pray so that it never happens. If it does, it won't be good for us, nor for the military force. Our wish is that peace comes back as soon as possible. I don't think we should negotiate with General Diendéré. I think he's someone who doesn't walk the walk as well as talk the talk.
To Mali, where in the first case of its kind to be brought to the International Criminal Court, a suspected Islamist militant is accused of destroying cultural sites in Timbuktu. Ahmad al-Faqi al-Mahdi is suspected of war crimes in relation to the destruction of 9 mausoleums and a mosque there 3 years ago. Islamists occupied Timbuktu until they were ousted by French forces in 2013. Al-Mahdi was informed of the charges against him during the hearing. France has ordered the seizure of properties tied to the family of the President of the Republic of Congo after an investigation into wealth allegedly obtained dishonestly. Congo's long-ruling leader, Sassou Nguesso, is among a number of African leaders targeted by a long-running French investigation in which they all deny wrongdoing. Amnesty International is calling on the Central African Republic to confiscate and sell diamonds amassed by traders that could be fueling violence and child labour. Huge amounts of so-called conflict diamonds could end up on the global market when a ban on exports from the country is lifted once the government meets conditions set in July by the Campbell process.
The Campbell process is supposed to stop conflict diamonds from entering international markets. And if you're a member of the Campbell process, you're supposed to have internal controls in place. So CAR, for example, should have internal controls in place when it's let back in that are supposed to regulate the trade to try and stop diamonds being smuggled out. But actually, historically, CAR has about 30% of its diamonds have been smuggled out. The World Bank actually estimated potentially 50% of its diamonds were smuggled out. So that's also one of the issues with the Campbell process, is that it hasn't addressed this systemic smuggling that's gone on within CAR, and that has inevitably continued and actually increased as a result of the conflict. Actually, by looking at conflict diamonds that have funded rebel groups, you're ignoring, for example, governments that themselves are abusive and are profiting from the diamond industry. You're ignoring human rights abuses in the diamond industry. So in CAR, for example, historically diamonds have been mined by miners who can be trapped in exploitative relationships with the traders they sell those diamonds to, who can work in really hazardous conditions. We found a child of 11 years old, for example, working in one of the mines there. From our perspective, it's important that the people of CAR can begin to benefit from those diamonds, and that doesn't mean the corrupt elites or the companies in Bangui that may so far have profited from the diamond trade, but making sure that the resources really trickle down to the miners who are mining these diamonds in CAR itself, and who at the moment are just not profiting from that industry at all.
Britain's Prime Minister David Cameron has walked into a row in the Caribbean over whether Jamaica should be compensated for British slavery, which ended nearly 200 years ago. Campaigners have also accused Mr Cameron of having links to Jamaican slavers. The trip coincides with an announcement that Britain will spend £25 million on a new prison in Jamaica, so hundreds of criminals can be sent home to serve their sentences. More than 600 Jamaican nationals are imprisoned in the UK. Human Rights Watch has called on Tunisian authorities to free a 22-year-old student jailed last week for allegedly being gay. The organisation also wants the country to revoke a law that criminalises sodomy and has asked for invasive examinations of people suspected of being homosexual to be stopped.
This 22-year-old man was called by the police for an investigation into a murder case. But instead of investigating the murder case, they investigated his private life. They searched into his mobile phone. They found messages sent to other men, and they started to force him to confess his homosexuality. I call the Minister of Justice to ask the prosecutor not to apply the Article 230 to not prosecute people for homosexuality again. We also call the Minister of Health to send a directive to all doctors not to practice anal tests, which are an attack on the fundamental dignity of human beings. So everyone, in fact, must come face to face with his responsibility in this case.
Transport for London is preparing to launch a crackdown on popular taxi app Uber, proposing new rules that would ban some of its key features. It's another blow for the company, which has faced criticism from black cab drivers in the city and opposition worldwide. Meanwhile, Uber's boat service in Istanbul, Turkey is making waves. Here's more.
Istanbul's Bosphorus, a passage choked by traffic. But today, frustrated commuters have another option. American company Uber is offering an adaptation of its mobile app for cars. Starting at €15, people can cross the city's famous waterways with an Uber boat.
Here, once you confirm that you want to be picked up in this location, you just click on the Request Uber Boat button, and the signal will be forwarded to the nearest boat available.
A few minutes later, a boat seating up to 10 people arrives at the port, and it only takes 5 minutes to cross the strait, negotiating a route through the ferries and tankers.
In general, it's the big boats that get priority. We navigate around their routes.
But avoiding conventional traffic comes at a high price. Even when split between all 10 passengers, a ticket is still more pricey than a public ferry. 2 months since its launch, Uber Boat is yet to clock up as many rides as it hoped.
I use the ferry. I've never used a private boat. On the Bosphorus, you generally use the public boats to get where you want, plus it's cheap. You can even use the Istanbul travel card anywhere in the city.
For now, Uber Boat is still a niche market for people with the money to spare, those in a hurry, and simply lovers of the Bosphorus, hoping to enjoy a Kodak moment.
And that's all for now at Vox News this lunchtime. We'll be back again at 3 o'clock with another update. Thanks for watching.